people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A look at what Alicia Baumgardner is up to ahead of her upcoming fight with Delphine Persoon. Every fight, I have a chip on my shoulder. So says the reigning champion. Defending champion, it's safe to say Baumgardner, who crossed from her 20s into her 30s during the layoff, has a lot of pent-up frustration to take out on the Belgian veteran Delphine Persoon. I've been through so much, Baumgardner told Boxing Scene. There's so much backstory to this win, and I know what the win's gonna look like. I have a lot of things to fight for. It's all giving me flashbacks as to how I was feeling the moment I became a world champion against Terry Harper. And you know how that ended. A fourth-round knockout. Can she knock out Delphine Persoon? It's not like Delphine hasn't been knocked out before. She has, but it was a very, very, very long time ago. Way back there in 2010. 14 years. I suppose because Delphine is much older now, and she's pushing 40, and Alicia's punching power, it is possible that she gets her out of there, given all she's been through. The mourning of her stepfather, the stress, and criticism from the naysayers, the inactivity. Is Baumgardner going to be fighting with the proverbial chip on her shoulder later on this month on the 27th? Yeah, well, every fight I have a chip on my shoulder, she answered. It seems like every fight I go in there with something to prove. What's she trying to prove in this one? This is gonna be her first fight since that doping fiasco kicked off last year. There's gonna be scrutiny as to how she looks and how she fights. Like what you see Conor Benn's been getting. The scrutiny he's been getting, the 2 fights he had after his doping fiasco. I know that it's a blemish, for sure, Baumgardner said. Obviously, I don't like it, but it is what it is, and I can only move forward and just keep proving who I am. Advocating for a clean sport and advocating for fairness and being heard. Boxing is one of those sports where some people don't have those opportunities to be heard, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be heard and show everything that I needed to show to be found innocent. I know the truth. I know who I am and the integrity. As an athlete, I can only continue on my own path to keep showing up in my authentic way. You know boxing fans, no matter what you tell them, no matter what you say, they're always going to look at you in a certain light after a doping fiasco. Doping fiascos these days are weaponized quite conveniently. They're ignored when the boxing fans want to ignore them, and they are weaponized when the boxing fans want to weaponize them. When they want to diminish a fighter and their abilities, that's one thing they'll resort to, bringing up a doping fiasco. It is what it is. She's got to fight Delphine Persoon now, who's probably not quite in her prime at 39 years old, but she's nevertheless undefeated over the last 4 years. I think a lot of people are maybe overlooking the fight, but I have a great opponent in front of me, and I love this fight, Baumgardner said. It's not like I came back and I'm just picking Joe Schmo off the street to fight. I have somebody in front of me who's coming to fight, and when I win big, I'll show that I can do what Katie Taylor couldn't do with Delphine. Knock her out. That would be a statement, as Baumgardner will be trying to do so in a transitional phase on several fronts. She has a new training team, as Tony Harrison is out, and Ramon Carlos Matthews is now the primary voice in the gym and in her corner. Also, this is the Bomb's last fight of her Matchroom contract. Even though it's not being promoted by Matchroom, and it's not on the DAZN platform. I guess after this, she's a free agent. She has started her own promotional company, Baumgardner Promotions, before she becomes a free agent. I think it's important as a fighter to know the business side of boxing, she explained. When I first started, I knew that eventually I wanted to be my own boss. Having Baumgardner Promotions, it's a lot of extra work, but I'm willing to do it. I don't know everything. I'm learning on the job, but it is so important that athletes know the business and that they're able to negotiate for themselves. Being honest, boxers that start up their own promotional companies are a dime a dozen. They do so with mixed success, mixed results. When Oscar did it, it worked. When Floyd did it, it worked for a while, but it's not working so good right now.
Not really.
Then you have guys like the Charlos who started up Lions Only Promotions, which I don't even look at as a legitimate promotional company, or Devin Haney Promotions, DHP.
Gervonta Davis's promotional company, GTD.
I don't consider any of those promo companies legitimate promo companies because none of them do their own shows and none of them have a network deal. So what's a promoter without a network deal?
We'll have to see. If Alicia has more success with her promotional company than those aforementioned fighters have been having with theirs.
The launching of Baumgardner Promotions isn't the only way she's dabbing in something new. This whole card, an all-female event taking place on the Lux stage at the Trilith Studios in Atlanta, is full of experiments. It's being billed as the first fight card in an immersive world environment, taking place on an LED stage with graphic designers building a virtual backdrop, also airing
Streaming free on Brinks TV and Fubo Sports.
outlets that are dabbling in boxing for the first time. Publicist Josh Weissman connected the team at Global Combat Collective, which won the purse bid for the mandated title fight with a $500,000 bid, with Brinks TV, while Global Combat Collective CEO Nelson Lopez Jr. had a connection with Fubo, and they decided to make deals with both carriers. Making the fight free was of particular importance to Baumgardner. All eyes are good eyes when it comes to the sport of boxing.
Baumgardner said.
The problem is this card is going to be going head-to-head with the Mayer versus Ryan card on ESPN, and you will agree that ESPN has a bigger megaphone.
It's a bigger platform for boxing and a bigger platform for sports than either Brinks TV, which most boxing fans are not familiar with, or Fubo.
Interestingly, Baumgardner is not such a fan of the promotional tagline for her event, hit like a girl and fight like a champion. She isn't crazy about the use of the word girl when the competitors on the card are all grown women, and she also wishes the emphasis was really on the quality of the fights and not the gender of the fighters. Look, I understand why they're using that tagline, she said, but it's a little cliche to me, and I want it to be, when I talk about the sport, we just talk about the sport. I want to change the notion of always including that it's quote-unquote women's boxing, and these aren't young girls on the card. We're all women, adults, fighting on the card. So nothing against the saying, but I have to be honest, I don't like it.
Less is more.
The more you emphasize that it's a woman's fight, or that it's a card featuring primarily women, the more you make it seem like it's a novelty.
And at this point, you don't want that, and you don't need that. You don't need to keep doing that.
So I definitely see what Alicia means. Focusing on the latter part of the tagline, let's assume Baumgardner fights like a champion. Let's assume she defeats Persoon. Where does she go from there? When I win this fight, she said, with emphasis on it not being an if situation, it's going to pole vault me into the super fights that we've been wanting for some time now. I think the fight with Katie Taylor makes sense. I want to fight Katie. I want to fight Amanda. People want to see that. I want to see that. I want to know where I am in my career, and with my skill set, these are super fights. We want the super fights. We want the big fights. I'm undisputed at 130, and moving up is not a problem. Here's the problem. If she leaves Matchroom after this Persoon fight, what says she gets the Katie Taylor fight? Maybe Rhiannon Dixon gets the Katie Taylor fight. The winner of Dixon versus Harper.
If she decides to separate from Matchroom, Matchroom is not obligated to provide fights for her.
Because they have other fighters and other champions at or around those weights that they do have under contract.
Free agency isn't all it's cracked up to be. I said that before.
Not everybody can reap the benefits of being a free agent like, say, a Canelo Alvarez, because not everybody has an established core audience that will follow them irrespective of where they fight and under what banner. Everybody doesn't have it like that.
That's why free agency isn't all it's cracked up to be. It can be useful,
depending on what's out there for you. And I don't know with any certainty that a Katie Taylor fight awaits Alicia Baumgardner if she becomes a free agent. What if Katie loses to Amanda?
In a word, there are a lot of questions that are going to need answers after this Persoon fight, and that's if Alicia wins that fight.
In men's super middleweight news, ahead of next weekend's big fight, to beat Canelo Alvarez, Edgar Berlanga says the jab is his breadwinner.
Because Canelo's never seen a jab before?
For Edgar Berlanga to have a chance of beating Canelo Alvarez in less than 2 weeks, his jab will be pivotal. This is going to be our breadwinner, the jab, right here, Berlanga said in a recent interview with Michael McCarthy, also known as Large of Barstool Sports. To land a big punch, you gotta set it up. Guys like him at that level, you can't go out there and just try to throw bombs. He's going to see it. He's going to execute on that. So it's about setting it up, being smart in the ring, and having good discipline. It's not that Edgar is wrong.
He's not.
He's not wrong. It's that he's stating the obvious. Yes, you do need a good jab to stand a chance against Canelo Alvarez, but Canelo's seen plenty of good jabs. He saw Golovkin's 3 times.
You want that I should give you an itemized list of guys he fought that had a good jab? Golovkin had a good jab. Lara had a good jab.
Daniel Jacobs had a good jab. Billy Joe Saunders has a good jab. Caleb Plant has a good jab. Callum Smith, he's got a decent jab. I mean, Canelo Alvarez has been in the ring with his fair share of guys that had a good jab, a great jab even in some instances, certainly better than anything Edgar brings to the table. So when Edgar says this, while he's not wrong,
it's stating the obvious.
Berlanga complimented Canelo as having a crazy IQ and great defense. At the same time, Berlanga knows that power punches will still matter. He goes off of respect too, Berlanga said. If I'm over here pity-patting him, he's going to walk right through. I'm coming to fight, man. This is balls to the wall for me. This is the opportunity of a lifetime that I have to grasp towards. This is, of course, the biggest opportunity yet, and the toughest test for Berlanga after his knockout streak. Berlanga had 5 straight decision wins as he stepped up against and was tested by better opponents: Damon Nicholson, Marcelo Coceres, Steve Rolls, Romer Alexis Angulo, and Jason Quigley. In Berlanga's last performance, he knocked out unbeaten Padraig McCrory.
And all of these guys are a far cry from Canelo. None of them are adequate preparation.
He's a legend. He's been in there with the best, so we have to minimize our mistakes, Berlanga said. Legends make mistakes too. He can't slip up either. I'm dangerous. Just like he's dangerous, I'm dangerous too. But with us, we're minimizing a lot of mistakes that could happen September 14th, where he could try to execute on it. And we have to limit those open doors and keep them shut. At the end of the day, he's been in there with the best, you know? Here's what I know. Edgar Berlanga is just doing his best to say what he thinks he needs to say. Say what sounds good.
That the jab is key.
Not that it isn't. But Canelo Alvarez, over 60 fights in, I'm fairly confident that at the level that he's competed, he's not only seen his fair share of great jabs, those have been jabs that are better than yours.
Against fighters that are better than you. Even the version of Sergey Kovalev that he fought, who has a fantastic jab, by the way.
For as much as people try to downplay the version of Sergey that he fought, Sergey had a better jab than Edgar.
What it is the general awkwardness that fills the air, knowing that Edgar is as overmatched as he is.
And Edgar's need to counteract that by saying something, because he has to say something. Eddie Hearn, he says he's going against Canelo Alvarez after backing him for the last 4 years. Eddie Hearn, who promotes Edgar Berlanga.
He's just doing his job.
I think Canelo will take any fight if the money is right, said Hearn. He has no fear. He definitely does not fear Terrence Crawford. I think he is more concerned about the plaudits he will get for the victory if he were to win that fight. It's like he beat a 154-pounder and a 147-pounder who just came up. If he loses that fight, it's like, oh, he just got beat by a 54-pounder. With Canelo, he selects fighters on the styles that he likes. I genuinely think that's why he chose Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia. He likes guys that come forward and fight him. I don't think he likes facing fighters who move. His body is probably not quite what it was. When Jermell Charlo ran off the back foot, Canelo didn't like it or enjoy it. He wants someone who comes to fight. He'll fight anyone. He also, in his head, has a number that he thinks fights are worth. It's just whether or not that's realistic.
Canelo is in a unique position that a lot of fighters, in fact, the vast majority of fighters, are not going to see themselves in. The right to captain the ship, the right to choose.
He has a level of say-so in his career that most fighters, the vast majority of fighters, are never going to have. So for that, there are going to be critics. There are always going to be critics.
Another unique element of Canelo Alvarez's career at this stage is that he's been around for a very long time. A professional boxer since age 15.
He fought the who's who guys, the somebodies at 154 when he was at 154, the somebodies at 160 when he was at 160, and all the somebodies, or most of them, at 168, save one.
David Benavidez.
I think Canelo sees the potential financial opportunities around the Benavidez fight, and he probably wants to build it and say, I'll take that fight, but pay for it. It's a dangerous fight, said Hearn. Benavidez is now campaigning at 175. He's a huge guy, and in the ring, without a rehydration clause, he is going to be the bigger guy. I think Canelo knows that's a tough fight, whether or not it's real that he wants 150 million, or he put that out there to get close to 100 million. He wouldn't hesitate to take the fight. There is no part of him that feels like he couldn't win that fight. He understands that rivalry means big money. I think that sometimes in boxing, not ego, but like things will be said between teams and people will feel disrespected. When you feel disrespected, sometimes you don't even want to give them the opportunity, or you want to make sure you get paid for the opportunity.
I think it's a bit more of the former than the latter.
This thing with Canelo and David Benavidez, Team Benavidez, he might want to make them wait, make them sweat.
Because they disrespected him.
He's in a unique position because he hasn't left a lot for himself. When you consider the campaign he had at 160, the campaign he had at 168, he's been around so long and fought so many people that he doesn't actually have that many options.
I understand that Edgar Berlanga seems like overkill, but I also understand that a lot of fighters seem like overkill to Canelo.
Mabili would seem like overkill to Canelo. William Skull would seem like overkill to Canelo.
Diego Pacheco.
Canelo brings a level of experience to the table that is uncommon for most fighters that are out there, even the decent ones, to the point that an opponent that might make for a decent scrap with someone else, to Canelo, oh, that's overkill.
Like Edgar.
That's a mismatch. To a Mabili, to a Pacheco, fighting Edgar would be a solid fight. It would be alright, but to someone as experienced as Canelo,
it's overkill.
Thus creates a general awkwardness, an awkward air around this fight that Edgar tries his best to address by saying very obvious things like, well, you need a good jab to beat Canelo.
You think?
He can't help it. He's got to say something. That's where Canelo Alvarez is in his career. The David Benavidez fight, in many ways, seems like the last whale of a fight that he can have.
Anything short of that is going to seem like small potatoes, like this Edgar Berlanga fight that he's about to have.
And the enraged fans that grow more enraged as time passes and Canelo fights other people not named David, that lends itself to the marquee value of the fight if and when it happens.
That's what Eddie Hearn is suggesting.
Which is not outside the realm of possibility because this is not Canelo Alvarez's first rodeo.
That speaks to what I just told you about experience and his experience level, and how there are not that many super fights left out there for him. No, not even the Crawford fight. Not anymore. Not based on how he just looked at 154. The Benavidez fight is one of the few big fights he can have. So maybe he's letting it marinate, maybe he's building it, or maybe due to the disrespect, he's just not giving those guys the satisfaction.
That is a story that only time can tell.